Welcome everyone to this episode of Quirky Inspirations. Let's start that again. Welcome everyone to this episode of Quirky Inspirations. Now, our podcast is set with that name because, well, quirky is something I've been described as a number of times. For me, quirky is unique, and you kind of don't know what's coming next. I am not somebody who stays within the little boundaries that people put on me. You tell me I can't, just watch me. This is kind of the feel for the people who come in as our guests too. They are unique and they are all making a difference in the world. And that's why I like to interview them. Inspirations, because they all have a very inspirational story to share with us. And that is what got them going in their level of expertise, in their area of finesse that they are bringing to the world to make a difference. Today, I am joined by the gorgeous Liz Mutasa, based here in Perth, and the CEO and founder of her company, Liz. Now, I'm going to let Liz describe herself, introduce herself in her own words. There'll be a full bio in the show notes, but Liz, in your own words, tell us about you, who you are now and where you've come from.
Ooh, I did a bit of a chuckle there because I loved when you said, oh, when you told me I can't, it's as if you're fueling to say you can. I love that. Anyway, hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm the founding director of Liz. So a little bit about myself. I also would think, people might differ, but I also have this side that's quirky about me in how I go about my business, particularly because for me, my business is spiritual. For how I got around to founding this business was personal. So in my own personal journey, I been always picking on what am I passionate about? What am I really good at? What helps me to feel like I'm doing something for the world? What is it that I can wake up and my daughter can look at me and go, oh, Mom, we're doing this together. What is it? So to me, family defines me.
Right.
My spirituality defines me. Doing something together, doing something that causes cohesion, that causes people to connect. I'm always looking at solutions. So I'm always solution focused in how I approach problems because I'm always thinking there's always a solution to something. It might not be exactly as how someone views it, but there's always a solution. So I'm always solution focused. I'm always creative in how I come to my solution. If you ask my mom, she'll be like, oh my gosh, this child is always improvising. Love it. And I think that's the occupational therapy as well in me because we're creative problem solvers by nature. So we're always looking at what can we do because life is beautiful, actually. So we're always thinking, why wouldn't I find a way to make that a reality for someone who might have struggled in life? So I'm always a problem solver like that. I'm always helpful and joyful in how I go about it. Some people might think, oh, this girl doesn't take her job seriously, or she doesn't take her helping or doing what she does seriously, because I'm always cheerful in how I approach it. But that's just me because I come from a lighter perspective in how I want to do my work here on earth and how I want to serve. So yeah, I think that's a little bit about what ticks about Liz. Yeah.
Brilliant. Because my background is, I think is in speech pathology, and I have worked alongside OTs for years. And yeah, if there was something that I couldn't quite figure out, ask an OT. They'll come up with a brilliant idea, and it usually involves a tape measure. You want to measure anything? Ask an OT. They'll have a tape measure to hand.
And that was the reality for me because growing up, I'd always wanted to build, right? So I'd always Yes, I'd always been this kid. Even like the houses that we have in Zimbabwe, we built them ourselves. And I was always the one at the site. Like I was always the one telling the builders what to do. I was there, I was present. So when I did my qualification, automatically, I didn't want to go to work in a hospital because I was like, no, find me where I can use my tape measure. Like I want to go to the building.
Now, can I just tell you, audience, we did not arrange the tape measure conversation. That was purely inspirational. So tell us a bit more then about the site stuff that you're doing, because people who are listening to this, they may have that hospital view of an occupational therapist, but that's not what you do. So tell us a bit more about how you're using your tape measure in the world.
So how it came about, right? Like I'm saying to you, I'd always had this passion, this underlying passion about building, about designing building. But for some reason, I didn't want to be an architect. Can you believe it? Like I actually didn't want to be an architect. Whenever someone said, but Liz, you're so good at drawing, I'm like, and they're like, so do designing since you're into building. And I said, no, because for me, what I realized, but I think I've realized over time, what I realized was I was a people person. So my way of interacting or being part of the world was very people based. Yeah. It wasn't paper, like it wasn't drawing based. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have interactions with people, find out what they want in their environment, what ticks for them, how can we make it better? What can I do to help you do what you need to do? So for me, when I then heard about occupational therapy, I was like, oh, so that's the thing I can use to do what I need to do from a people's perspective. So then when I became an occupational therapist, my first job, I remember very well because people were like, oh, when you qualify, you go and work in hospital, you do rotation. You have to do rotation because how are you going to know where you want to be? And you need to know all the different areas because occupational therapy is wide. And in my head, I'm going, oh, no, it's not happening. I know what I want to do. I am not going to go 12 months rotation hospital to just discover what I already know. Like, we're not doing that. So I then just went straight into working in social services.
Sure.
The social services back in the UK is an area that you go to if you want to do anything with housing, with people in community, helping people within their home environments. So for me, it was what I felt right to do in that time. So I then went ahead and did that. And I was obviously under like mentorship and guidance from senior OTs, but it was doable. So a lot of times people would then ask me, how did you get that job? Like, no one goes straight to social service. It was this thing that you can't do. You cannot do that. But I think when I started working, and even my managers and the OTs that I was working with, they started actually seeing the potential for why not the graduate OT, why can't they do this? Because this was something that they realized people can be trained on the job. Like you can upskill them, you can tell them what is going on. Because there was this fear that if you let a graduate in the communities too soon, oh my gosh, you're asking for trouble. But for me, because I already had that in me that I was very cocksure what I wanted to do. So I went and worked in the community. And yeah, it was a no-brainer. I think working as an occupational therapist where you're fundamentally what you're doing is you're working to how can you optimize someone's life? Sure. How can you improve capacity? How can you build like skill building with this person to a point where they feel like they're independent? I like to use the word interdependent because even if you don't have any impairments or malfunction, like you still are depending on someone else for something. Yes. So to me, it was such a strong word. I don't even know up to now, I don't even know where I had it, but I remember even it's very early on, I was so caught in that word. Wherever I would talk to someone, I'll say, please use interdependence. Like this whole independence thing actually makes you not achieve what you want to do, because you feel like you have to do everything yourself.
Yes.
But that's not the point. It's about finding what can you do, and then what you can't. So being able to identify that is crucial. Then get the support, and that gets you where you want to go.
Can I pick you up on that point? Because language is so important, isn't it? Because we're focusing so much on independence, and therefore there's almost a sense of, well, you don't ask for help. I mean, if you actually ask for help, it's a sign of weakness.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And whereas that word interdependence is so important, because it's taking away that thought of, I can't ask for help, I've got to do this all on my own, and the pressure that brings.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for highlighting the word interdependence for us, because I will continue now to push that one.
It is. It's the reality of anyone. We are, as human beings, and which is why, in a way, when I started Alliope, for me, it was crucial that I highlight our interdependent nature as human beings. And in my vision statement, I use the word Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is actually an African philosophy word that depicts a whole lot of things. But the main thing that if someone hears this word, anyone actually in the world, when they talk about this word, it's talking about the oneness, talking about humanity. It's talking about that I'm not able to realize my humanity without the other person. So you cannot identify that you're a human being without being able to be reflected by another human being. So if you were just on your own in this world with animals, just you as your own person, you will not be able to identify yourself as human.
Right. Yes.
So in order for you to identify, or in order for you to view yourself as somebody, it's because you've been able to be reflected in another person's eyes.
Absolutely, because again, if you think about it from a developmental perspective, both you and I I'm coming from that window. We learn who we are by the definition of the people around us, what is reflected to us.
Exactly.
And whether that be parents, well, initially it isn't the parents and primary caregivers. And then when we get into the wider world, oh boy, does society have a little bit of an impact.
Yeah.
So Ubuntu, can you spell that for us?
Ubuntu.
As it sounds.
As it sounds.
Ubuntu.
Yes.
Thank you. I will make sure that's in the show notes with a definition.
Yes.
Because that is, I mean, as you know, I get really geeking out on language. So that it's one of those words that you can't really translate, because it beautifully encapsulates. And when you do translate it, you've got to go for, instead of one word,
you got to explain it. Like, it's a word that obviously there's no English word to it, which I think is perfect, because some words, I think they are right by within their native language. I think there's certain words like ikigai, right? Like there's no English definition, word to that. And I think it's rightly so, because then people need to understand the depth of where it's coming from. Absolutely.
I could talk all day for that, but I'm not going to. I geek out on language, as you know. So tell us a bit about Alliope. How did that come about, and more about it for us, please?
So Alliope, it's two names. So how it came about is a bit someone say to me, oh, of course, I knew, she said to me, I'll just give you a backstory. She said to me, are you Zimbabwean? And I said, yes. She asked me. And I said, yes. She's like, is your business name you and your husband's, right? Like, did you combine two names? And I said, oh, it's not my husband, but yes, I did that. She's like, oh, of course, I know. So apparently, this is something I'm just going to discover, that a lot of Zimbabweans, they combine their husband and wife's name, and then that's their business name. So apparently it's a thing which I was not aware of.
Thank you. That's something else I've learned today. Ubuntu. Yeah, great.
I learned it like a few months ago. So my business name, Alliope, is actually, as I'm saying, it's two names. It's Elizabeth and Calliope. So I joined the first two and the last three of my daughter's name.
Right.
Yes, and I came up with Alliope. How that came about. So I identified this name last year, 2 years ago, when I started my business. And how it came about was because I'd been observing my daughter. So just like any therapist would do with children or first clients.
Greatest case studies on earth.
Right? Just go up. So my daughter, she's 8 now. But when she was around 6, I would say probably 5. I think that's when it started. 5 years, she started having so many questions about the world, about everything around her, about, so what if she does this, what will happen, like the cause and effects, about people around her. So where are we? Because she was born in the UK, but we live in Australia, obviously. And she then started identifying her skin color. She then started identifying when she would hear people say to her, they were born here. She'll be like, I was born in UK. And then they were like, but you're African. How can you be born in UK? You were born in Africa. You know, all these things that are being, like, in my head, I'm thinking, she's 5. Like, why are these big questions being thrown at my kid? But clearly, these were other kids. So it wasn't like an adult that's coming to her and be like, oh, this thing. No, it was just other kids being inquisitive, like other kids being curious and wanting to know, just like any kid. But in my mind, because this was my first time, I mean, she's my only kid. So this was my first time experiencing what I would say now was experiencing another reality through her eyes. Because for some reason, in my mind, I didn't think through all those other things that, oh, she's 5, she's going to be curious, she's going to come with questions, she's going to, I think in my head, I was just like, oh, it's just going to happen as she grows, and we'll figure it out as we go. But no, I had to actually figure me out in order to be able to answer her.
Right.
Because I didn't have answers for me. Like I hadn't had this figured out. So I couldn't even be in a position to answer her questions because I was now scared to say, wait, because I was able to reflect it back to myself to go, am I answering based on what's actually happening? Or am I answering based on my own bias, based on my own understanding of what I think is happening? So that, in a way, opened my eyes to, I wonder actually how she's going through the world. Like, how is she interacting with her environment? Like, how is the environment defining her?
Yes.
What is she becoming? Who is she?
Back to that reflection thing again, isn't it?
Oh, yes, because for some reason, as a parent, you assume you know your kid, you assume everything that you're doing is for them and it's for their best interests. And you assume these things because you're a parent. But for some reason, that time for me, I couldn't assume that because I'd realized my own bias.
Right.
I'd realized that, no, I can't. If I'm going to be answering this child, I need to realize, I need to be aware of my own flaws. I need to be aware of where my own pits and like what is going on in how I'm viewing my world. Because she's her own person.
Yes.
So because of that, I then was like, oh, interesting. So I actually wrote notes. So I'm actually in the middle of writing a book because I found it very fascinating because I'm like, this is so cool. I don't know if my mom did. So I got my mom on the phone and I explained to her, I'm like, I'm going through this weird season of being a parent. Like, because I was asking her, I'm like, is this normal? Like, is this what every parent goes through? And then she's laughing. She's like, I don't know what you mean. And I'm like,
Is that sort of one of my other speakers has described it as conscious parenting.
so I was going through that without knowing, right?
Mm.
So without knowing what it's called or whatever that is, I was going through it.
Mm.
And because in my family, no one had actually done that whole conscious parenting, they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean you want to view the world through your child? Like, what is that? So I didn't have anyone guiding in terms of what I was going through that time. So because of that, I then thought, okay, I'll take it as a case study. I'll figure this out quietly, and then I'll do my little trials and errors and figure this out.
Meanwhile, collecting data. Oh, yes.
I'm collecting data, right? So that's what I did. And as I was going through it, I thought, I wonder if I could do business out of this, right? So now I'm trying to think, if I'm doing business, am I going to do business as a therapist? No, I do want to do business as a therapist around that. But what I then discovered as I was going through that, I then discovered, no, I can do business because I've identified that the design of our environment is important. Yes, light bulb. So that's when I thought, oh my gosh. So now thinking of me, this young me that wanted to build all the time, and then think about this whole designing and building, and then having worked as an access consultant, and then having worked as an occupational therapist, I started joining dots. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I feel like I discovered something.
Oh, fabulous.
This, I'm sure other people had already, but for me in that moment, I feel like I had this big discovery. I'm like, oh my gosh, the design of our environments is crucial. Oh my God. So because of that, I then realized how my child was going through her life was based on the design.
Yes.
It was based on the design, whether she was aware of it or conscious or whatever, it didn't matter. It was based on a design. And someone had designed this.
Yes.
Someone had designed this, how she interacts, me moving from UK to come to Australia, how she interacted with the design of Australia. Someone designed this. So that then gave me this fuel where the idea of intentional design, universal design, inclusivity,
yes,
placemaking, the face nations, like how do they feel placed in their nation? Like all these really fundamental, like deep questions started coming up because in my mind, I started thinking of how an Aboriginal is experiencing the environment.
Yes.
I started thinking how me moving here, how are they viewing me here?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there were big questions. I even up to now, some of them I don't have answers to. But what it did is I then wanted to do something about it. I then thought, okay, if it means I have gone through all this in my life to this point, there is something I gotta give.
Yes.
Because all this information, knowledge, experience, expertise, it cannot amount to nothing. It cannot just amount to me being a therapist, right? Like you cannot just, in my head, I was like, you better do something to change something in the world.
As a therapist, you can influence a few people. In that design space, wow.
It's huge. And realizing that, it even then took me a step further, because as much as I was doing my business here and I was just doing my thing here, I then started having, again, this thing that's just boiling in me, just going, let's just go bigger.
This is bigger than you. Yes.
Go the world. Because then I started realizing the problems that we're facing here in Australia are the problems that are being faced in Africa. Like, a lot of people don't admit to that. There's this assumption that, oh, Africa is poor because 1, 2, 3 things, or Australia, we're so much better because we're developed, we have this. But when you actually identify the problems that people are facing, a lot of these problems are similar.
Yes. They're just dressed in a different robe.
They're just dressed differently. So because of that, I then thought, so if you're telling me that Australia, Brazil, America, Japan, South Africa, like, you're telling me that we're all facing these similar problems? Oh, wow. So that's when I just took it up, and I then did a presentation in Egypt. So there was this, there was this part of the COP27. So they have this Africa Union housing finance. So they had their own agenda around green living, where part of the sustainable development. So again, with the whole UN sustainability goals, how can we make the world better? How can we use sustainable methods to live a better world for our children? Like, to really think about this longevity of what we're doing and the impact that it has on the planet. So for me, I then realized there was a bigger picture to my realization, and I wanted to be part of that. And I then did my presentation, which when I did that presentation, I was laughing because the realization of how big what I'd realized had happened like a few months, right? So then I then get invited to come and do this presentation. And
did you get that invite?
I'm thinking, I'm like, what? You telling me I have to fly all the way to Egypt? Like, maybe next year. And they're like, but why not this year? And I'm like, well, I'm not ready. I haven't, like, this is something that I'm just coming around to, like, literally. And they're like, but you've got it. So why wouldn't you want the world to know? And I think that fear as well of, oh my gosh, what if I don't do it right? What if? And then I have amazing people around me, and they went like, Liz, stop, get out of your head, get it done. And I'm like, oh, this is happening. And I did.
Excited. Yeah.
And I did.
And I mean, we had the conversation after you came on Your Words Have Power, that your message is far bigger than Perth. You've been to Cairo, next stop the UN or the World Economic Forum. Why not?
Now I'm just going with it.
Yeah. Well, the point is, as you've identified in our conversation today, this is a global issue. Yeah. And the message requires to go in front of really people who hold purse strings and have influence on a global level.
Exactly.
You've heard me say many a time that it's not you're the Uber driver carrying your very important message to where it needs to go. And you, my darling, are a living example of it. I'm so proud with you of what you've achieved this year. It's been phenomenal.
It's been insane. This year, if anything, it's been a roller coaster. It's been, I think, how I would put it is, it's me finally saying yes to my calling.
Yes.
It's me finally saying yes to what can I do? You know, like sometimes we don't really think about it in terms of when we ask people, how can I help? We say it because we think the other person needs help, right? So we just say it. But when you actually say, what can I do? What can it takes that responsibility back to you in terms of how you help.
Yeah.
What can I do for you? So for me, that was something that I guess was concreted, because for such a long time working in health and social care, you kind of just think, yeah, you're supporting people, you're helping, you're assisting, you're doing this. But when you step away from that and you actually think, but what can I do to make this world better?
On a broader sphere.
Yeah. What is that? What is that? That Elizabeth, what can she do? What is Elizabeth here for? What are you here to do? So that to me was like a revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you cast your mind back to growing up in Zimbabwe and to where you are now,
Yeah.
both geographically, intellectually, your influence, your mum must be so proud of you. I mean, I feel proud of you and I'm not your mother. So,
yeah.
But my point being, where we start is never going to define us unless we let it. And you are a walking example of that, my love, because you've not, as we said right at the start, if somebody gives you a box to sit in, you're going to go, just watch me get out and throw this box open and completely define, no boxes, thank you. Not even a bigger box. That's a box.
I need a box.
I am not a cat. I do not sit in boxes. Yeah. So again, Liz, is there anything else that you'd like to, I mean, this year has been a phenomenal one for growth and you are really making a difference in the world. What do you see in your vision for this coming year? Because from my perspective, I'm clearly having a mad year coming up, making a difference. And that is our theme for 2023. So I'm wondering, what is your inspirational thought for 2023 in terms of where you're going to make a difference?
So part of when I did my presentation, right? So just it will link together with this.
Cairo.
Sorry?
Cairo?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had prepared my presentation and then I get on stage. Yes. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'll be able to look at the slides and I'm sure it'll pick it up.
Yeah.
So remember my whole spirituality drive, right? So I'm on stage and I'm going, okay. And then one thing got in my head. Mother. And again, I'm going, okay, what's this? And then as I start my speech, I then say, I'm a mother and my house is broken. My home needs me. I need to do something about that.
Oh, powerful.
Right? And in my mind, I'm going, wait, this is not in the script. How am I going to follow this? Like, how am I going to follow? Like, literally, I'm on stage and I'm in my head, I feel like I'm waffling because I'm like, how am I going to follow what I just said? Because I don't have anything written around this. So then I just keep going. And I said, we have all these issues that are to do with our buildings. We have buildings that people can't afford. We have buildings that are built that are causing health problems. We have buildings that are, and I say all these 5 problems that I still remembered. But the way that I shelved them, like the way that I just talked about these problems and how the house is the pinnacle to anything. The home is where you dream. The home is where it all starts. So if that home is broken, then we have a big issue. Because for me, I was talking from the design, again, I was talking from the how we are designing what we call a home. What is that? And I wasn't just looking at the wall, like the physical. I was looking at the emotional. And that was, again, what I'm thankful for being an occupational therapist, because I don't think an architect or a designer or a builder would have thought about it like that.
No.
And then I started talking about the psychological impact, the mental impact, emotional. So I was talking about all this, the social, of how our design of what we call a home will impact us forever. So it's important that we actually pay attention and be intentional about how we design what we call our home.
Yes. So powerful. So
right. So because for me, coming 2023, I put down that this is the year that I'm going to start building my first home, the home that I see in my head. I'm going to put it on paper and I'm going to put it on the ground.
In bricks.
Yes.
Oh, how precious is that? And that's your metaphor for life, isn't it? And your work. Yeah. Oh, that's really powerful, Liz. I mean, if I can go back to what you were saying about your presentation, what you've done there is really hit at the primal brain of the people listening. You do that with the people holding the purse strings, they're going to be thinking back to their own mothers and their own homes. That is not generally how your average architect thinks.
No.
So you really hit home from a speaking perspective at every single level. So whether by design or whether by default, or divine design, you really brought that home, love. Was it recorded?
We recorded with my mom. Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
It was insane. Because after that, when I watched back, that's when I was like, oh my gosh. I was saying, because mom was like, you weren't waffling. Because immediately after, I was like, oh God, I was waffling so much. And then I was like, you were not waffling. I'm like, I felt like I was waffling because a lot of things I was saying were off script. And she's like, but that was actually more powerful. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now reflecting back, that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, that was powerful, because that's actually the truth. And even when I then started getting people texting me, messaging, emailing, and going, oh my gosh, Liz, we do need more women that are founders. We need more women that are developers, property developers. We do need more women that are planners, town planners. And we do need more healthcare professionals in planning.
Yes.
Urban designing. And I said, oh, you do. I said, you do.
You turned on the light bulb, so well done.
So, yeah, because in my mind, it was, like those things where you take for granted because it makes sense in your head, but that's actually not the case for everybody. In my head, it always made sense that an occupational therapist or healthcare professional should be part and parcel of designing your environment, right? To me, it made sense. Yeah. Because I'm like, a lot of the issues that we face to do with health and social care, if you get a health professional, it will be a different story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So because I said it on stage, and because obviously in my interaction, I started just saying it more. And I'm like, because I realized that what I think people should know, people don't. And I understand why. Because for them, it's like, you go to university to study how to design the built environment. And that's what you do. So it's like that whole boxing thing. That's what you do. So for someone who has done occupational therapy, you go to study health and social care. That's what you do. Done. But when you say you're putting health and building, they're like, what are you talking about? Like,
no, those are incompatible boxes. Those are incompatible boxes. What were we saying? You do not fit a box.
Those two should definitely come together. This is what you don't realize. They should. And that's more conversations I have now, where I say to some, because they will, like, I still have people that's like, but you're not an architect. And I'm like, I don't need to be one. I'm coming to consult, I'm coming with knowledge from the health perspective, which has been lacking in our buildings.
Yes.
The person, me, is very important. And this person is lacking in how we're building.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then a person in healthcare is your person. You should have one in your team.
Yes.
Yeah.
It takes it out, as you were saying right from the start, it takes it out of the head, brings it into the heart. And you need both sides of it to have a functional design that people can live, not just survive, but thrive and grow in.
Oh my gosh.
So important. So important. Yeah. So Liz, where's the story going next year? Your own house?
So
is your house going to be a show home?
So
this is how it can be done?
This whole me just going about this. So because I had this revelation again, I mean, it's been like boom, boom, boom this year. I then realized the home that I need to do is Zimbabwe.
Right. So you're going to build your home in Zimbabwe?
Yes.
Right.
So because I'm grateful for my mindset coach, business strategists that I've had. I've had some amazing people supporting me. That really, like, we dove in, like we dive right in terms of what matters. How are we going to go about this? Because it's important how we go about this.
Yes.
So in those conversations, in my mind, right, I had not thought about going back to Zimbabwe as a symbol, like as a what's the word, like this, something that was crucial in how I was going to go about it.
Okay.
In my mind, I was thinking, we're doing quite good here in Australia. My family's here. My family, other families in UK. I mean, we have family across all over the world, but I had not thought about Zimbabwe that's where it starts. I had not thought about it like that.
Right.
Because in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this here. I'm going to just start here and I'm going to do this here. Like I'm okay. Because for me, Australia is home.
Sure.
So in doing that, in going through all this, I then had another revelation on, but Liz, if you're going to identify a broken home, your country is broken. So it's not just about the house. There's a spiritual nature to this house. And where you plant your first house is very important.
Yeah. And obviously, if you can show that it can work in a country, as you say, as broken as Zimbabwe, then hello world, there's no excuses.
And that was the whole, for me, as I was praying and meditating on what was going on through me, that was the whole thing. It was saying, yes, you have traveled, you have passports across the world, you are like a global citizen now. But if we're actually going to be impactful in how we're going about this, you need to make a statement. And your first statement has to be Zimbabwe, because that's your roots.
Yes.
So my logo, I don't know if you noticed, my logo is actually a tree. So for some reason, my mom, some of my friends, people that I interacted with, some Reiki masters, right? I'm Christian, but people are like, so what are you doing with the Reiki master? I'm like, oh, trust me. Until you understand me, you'll get why. To me, Christianity and Reiki works. So the tree is a very sacred symbol in how I go about my life, in how Alliope is going about what it intends to do. So the tree, in a sense, for me, I'd always identified with the tree. I remember saying to my sister and some of my friends, and they would laugh at me for this. I said, do you guys just feel like the tree sometimes is talking to you? And they're like, what?
Love it. So tell us a bit more, Ben, then, if you so I'm aware of time, so can we be more succinct with this one?
Yes.
So I'm guessing that the roots and the branches, tell us more about the symbolism for you.
Yes, so it was important that the tree it's obviously quite a very significant thing in my life. It meant my roots is where I start.
Yes.
And how do I identify my roots? And that's where my ancestors come in. That's where I was born comes in. My parents' history comes in. All those things that I probably don't have like a really good understanding. But as I was going over it, I realized, no, I probably actually need to find a way to harmonize where I'm going and where I've been.
Right.
And where I am now.
Okay.
So in order for me to do that, like that whole catapulting, I thought that's what I'm doing. That's what came in my head. I thought for me, in order to thrust forward, I have to go back.
Go back. I
have to go back.
Nice.
Yeah.
So digging down into your roots back in Zimbabwe.
I have to go back.
Are you going to relocate there permanently, or is this a
so I'm still going to be like back and forth. But what I'm going to do, so for the first few months of 2023, I will be located in Zimbabwe.
Right.
Because what we've actually been going back and forth, I mean, I have 2 offices here in Zimbabwe because I already had a business in Zimbabwe. So we were trying to think where is going to be the headquarters. And I said, honestly, at this point, I care less about where I'm headquartered. What I care the most about is planting that house. Because that house is a symbol and is a statement to a whole lot of things. Because that's what even the consultant from World Bank said to me. She said, Liz, this is what I want you to go with. Go and plant that house and call us. Because
and have you noticed about the word you're using there? Planting a house. You're not building, you're planting. Back to that tree symbolism, isn't it? Beautifully conscious use of language there, my love. Well done.
Yeah.
Because this is an organic thing.
Yeah.
You're developing. Yeah. You're planting.
Yeah.
So for the first few months, you're going to be based in Zimbabwe while you plant your house.
Yeah.
Do keep us posted.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So we can follow you on Calliope, your YouTube channel. I know is active. So will you be posting regularly on there so people can?
I will try. Like, this is the thing, right? So I feel like a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to social media, because seriously, I just started. Like I started being active on social media June. This year, I'd never been active on social media ever. And June was where I was like, Liz, come on. Like, at the end of the day, if we're going to do this, you need to have digital presence. Sure. Because for such a long time, I just thought I never needed it. I'm like, I don't need that. And then I realized, no, if we're going to be very impactful and if we're going to be very methodical in how we go about this, you do need a digital presence. So we need to figure that out. So I've been figuring that out as I go.
And of course, you've also then got your visual data. Come on, think OT, you've got your visual data from the ground up. Because I mean, I've got all sorts of visions for this project in terms of how you're planting it and what you're doing. So we've got a step by step we can see, we can watch it. And by the way, note to self, those slides will be invaluable when you do your TED talk.
Oh, yes.
Not all of them, you can't have many, but you can have a few.
But it would be, yeah.
That's that. Oh, I'm tingling. That's wonderful, Liz. So we'll put all this information in the show notes, for want of a better word, at the bottom of our YouTube page.
Yeah.
And people can follow you. Is there any way else that obviously you want this message to go out? So share it. Share.
Like I said, I'm learning on how to do this whole social media thing. My sister's great at it. So she's telling me this, you should do this. I mean, I'm learning, but I'm open to if people can share the message, because for me, it's beyond me. It's something that we're trying to plant for everyone. It's not about Elizabeth and her family, or about Elizabeth and her becoming rich, right? It's actually understanding that what I'm trying to do here, it's fundamentally important for us as the people.
The interdependence again, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's exciting, and I'm doing it with family, which is in a way because one of my core values is really family. So for me to be able to present this to my family who already were doing their own businesses, and go, this is what I'm hoping we can all do together, and find it, because before, right, in my head I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this here. And then when I started thinking about, but I want to do this with my family, and then I started going, but I can't get them all to work under Eliope, like that's not going to be right. So as I was thinking, I then realized, no, I need to figure out how, and again, that problem solving me, I need to figure out how what they're already doing can influence the bigger picture.
Yes.
Of what Eliope is hoping to do. Yeah.
I'm just so excited. I'm so excited.
So that's what I did, and then I presented it to my family, and they were all like, what do you want us to do? Yeah.
Oh, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So when are you heading back to Zimbabwe?
I'm hoping to be back. Well, I'm going there end of January.
End of January?
February, because we've already started the designing of this house. We actually have 3 designs, because again, in my crazy mind, I then decided that I actually want to build a whole city from what I'm envisioning. Just because.
Well, as we've said, you don't stick you in a box, because it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work.
If I'm gonna do this house, then I want to show people how it gets all done, and then we can just have like a whole master plan on how. So I have actually a good team of people, like urban designers, and that we're actually working on the prototype, because I just thought, why not?
Well, why not? As you say. And when you've planted your first house, and people are interested, you say, well, here's the blueprint for the city.
Exactly.
Here's one I prepared earlier, in true Blue Peter style. So yeah.
Exactly. I can't just show you the house. I can show you what I'm seeing.
And you've even got a vision for it. Look, it's on paper. You don't have to imagine it. I've done that for you.
So let's get that done.
Yep. What's holding us back? Crack on. Wonderful, Liz. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your experience through life. And we've only heard a little bit of it. Now, I know a bit more about your backstory, but not today. We don't have time for that. However, for anybody who's interested, Liz's original story is on our YouTube channel, Your Words Have Power. We will stick the link in the bottom of this as well, so you can pick up the other part of it as well.
Yes.
This story is an ongoing evolution. You want to keep in touch with this, because believe me, this lady is the Uber driver to an incredibly important message. Watch out, world, in 2023. Liz Mutasa and Eliope are coming to get ya.
Oh, yes. We're coming. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Liz. I really appreciate your time, and we will keep in touch. And as I said, we'll pop the information in the bottom of our show notes things, and watch out for Liz. Keep in touch with her. Follow her progress. For now, Thank you, Liz. Take care.
Thank
Bye
you.
from us. Bye.